Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of BPMs, where the bland pineapple mayonnaise is all we can think about. Today on episode 6, we have a little bit of a different conversation for you. We're going to be talking today about beginning bands, how you can kind of get started, what your first steps should be, what you should be looking for when you're trying to form a band, things of those natures. Just kind of getting the show started for all you newcomers out there. So without further ado, I know that Trevor is very excited about this topic today because it is one of those things where Trevor does what is called band camp.
Rock and roll
camp.
Yeah, pretty much.
Fancy
Well, I
band
knew you liked
Sorry.
flutes, so I mean, that's all I knew. I mean,
this one
time at band camp.
you
know, and I mean, you tell us about it all the fucking time, so I mean, I just kind of figured that, you know, that's where we were going. But rock and roll camp. So this is a very big deal to Trevor. It's something that they do pretty much annually.
Yeah, except for this year,
right?
Obviously.
The pandemic kind of throwing that off a little bit. But for the most part, more or less, he was really excited about this because he deals with this kind of stuff so much, and talking about beginning bands and getting kids together and teaching them instruments and forming a group together and trying to like kind of solidify what it is that they're looking for when starting out as musicians in their career. So I know that Trevor's really excited about this topic. So most part, I mean, me and Jan are going to kind of be chilling for a little bit, let him talk about what rock and roll camp is, talk about just things that he's done and what he's seen and how he works with the youngsters to try to help them. And then we'll kind of throw in our 2 cents as we feel the topics kind of need us to.
We get to ask Trevor dumb questions.
Yay, my favorite. So, like Blaine said, annually I volunteer my time a week out of the year to help counsel and guide the youth of Pendleton, Oregon and surrounding areas through what we call rock and roll camp. My great friend Peter Turner, wow, too many Peters. Peter decided that when he was 21, he wanted to do something really great and give back, and he started what's called Rock and Roll Camp out of Pendleton. So pretty much it's like a week-long workshop, craft building, pretty much everything in between, whether or not you actually play music or you wanted to get into like journalism and magazine creating. We do pretty much all that. So day 1, we split all the kids up, like guitar class, strings class, vocal class, drum class, and we get all these amazing musicians from all over the Pacific Northwest to come and counsel it, and it turns out pretty good. So pretty much the idea of it is day 1, like I said, we split you into your workshops, guitar class, whatever, and then at the end of that day, we do what's called forming a band. So now once we have all the kids grouped up, guitars, bass, drums, violins, ukuleles, strings, whatever, we tell them, hey, it's time to make a band. And so they kind of like do their mingling, obviously friend group with friend group, but then we also have like what's called the board. So let's say you're in a rock band, but you don't got a drummer, you don't know anyone at camp who's a drummer. Well, someone without a band is going to put their name on that, and then we'll help group you together.
So to kind of take this out of rock and roll camp and into the real world, making a band.
Yeah.
How does that? What's the real world equivalent of the board?
Of the board? I don't know.
Craigslist?
Yeah, Craigslist.
Facebook?
There's also another one called Musicians Near Me, I'm pretty sure is a new one that just came out. And pretty much you just sign up to it. It's like an app service on your phone. You're like, hey, I'm a drummer in this area looking for a band. And if people actually use the app, I don't know how popular they are when it comes to that. I've never used one. But pretty much it's just like a band bulletin board. But Craigslist has it as well. It's like a musicians.
Yeah, they have a musician section for that.
Yeah.
But go ahead and continue with what you were saying.
So we do the workshops. We split up the kids, whether or not they're doing like rock journalism, which is honestly my favorite one because we get Aaron, who works with Mike Thrasher, to come out, and he does an amazing job. He's like their PR. He also works for, I don't want to say the name, but it's a paper in Portland.
Vortex? Does he work with Vortex?
No. Oh. I honestly can't comment much on that. But pretty much the idea is we get probably anywhere from 70 to 120 kids every year, and it's a week-long program. And at the end of the week, we set up a stage on Main Street, the 400 block right in front of Great Pacific, and it's a big stage, like big stage. We do full PA, backline, everything, and we give these kids the experience of playing their first show. Now, we either get one spectrum or the other out of it, the kids who are really great on stage and like that's their thing. And then we also get to help kids like break their shell and be more comfortable and outgoing, which I love because I have stage fright even to this day sometimes. So the point of Rock and Roll Camp is to get these kids together into bands. And they're only in that band for the week unless they want to continue it further. Like we've had really great bands come out of it, like Rev and stuff like that. To this day, even though they're in their 20s now, they still do that. And it's just great because you get to help these kids learn what it's like to work together, communicate, work towards a common goal, and create music. That's my biggest thing. I want more kids to play. Music is like, for me, music is like my number one passion for sure. And so when I get to see kids learning it and actually picking it up and being involved with it, that means a lot to me. So rock and roll camp pretty much was my first experience being in a band at the age of 13. I had a good group of friends, Taylor, Eli, Micah, all those guys. And my takeaway from it was, this isn't easy.
No,
And
I can't imagine it is. That was actually something. I want to finish your thought, but
Yeah.
I do have something to add on top of that here in just a sec once you finish your thought.
So day one was, yeah, in the morning, it's 8 o'clock. It feels like school, but I'm playing drums instead of doing math. So that's great. And drum workshop is chaotic as hell. We got 9 drum sets all in the same room. We do like a round table, like Randy Bimrose, Radiation City, the Shins, all like he comes and teaches drum class, and he's a fucking beast on the kit. And he just brings his little cantina kit, sets his up, and then obviously we all donate our gear, which is a great thing too, because some of these kids can't afford to like, oh, I want to play drums, because drums are kind of expensive. I'm not going to lie to you. Drums are fucking expensive. And so they get to sit behind a full trap set, full drum set. They get that experience too. Like, hey, can I actually do this? Is this something I want to pick up on? And if they don't like it, the next day they can go to guitar class and play guitar and see if that's what they want to do. And it's also like a skill building thing. So we do like poster creation, graphic design, everything in between that goes into like booking a show and playing a show and all that stuff. I could go on for hours about all the different facets that we cover.
Okay, so just to kind of throw some conversation in there for a second, what kind of so these kids are coming in, do they have any knowledge basis of how to play these instruments at all, or are they coming in
Some of them
fresh?
do, yes. Some of them already know, like, hey, I'm going to play bass. Like the Hood twins, they already knew what they wanted to do. Melissa, phenomenal bass player, and I loved working with her because she's also a phenomenal artist too. But she already knew what she wanted to do, so bass classes, zine, and then band. And that was her shtick. Now we get kids who, I can't remember his name, but he had no clue what he wanted to play, no clue what he wanted to do. He just knew he loved rock and roll. And so he came in, and then he ended up being one of the best drummers I've seen progress through the course. And there's kids that come from like marching band class, everything really. There was one kid one year that was playing an oboe, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever because I'd never seen one at rock and roll camp. So it depends. We get, I'd say probably 60% of the kids know what they want to do and what they're already playing, and they've already picked up on it a little bit. And then 40% of them, no, I'd say 30% of them are there to learn something, and then 10% of them are just there to hang out.
Okay.
But we get all the different groups. We get the new guys, the already in their wheelhouse, and then the people who just want to figure it out.
Okay. So the reason why we're kind of diving into this too is one of those things where it's like the fact that this rock and roll camp actually like forms kids to come together and kind of communicate and stuff like that. It's kind of like the real world where when you're wanting to start out as a musician and you actually like, man, I want to form a band. I want to do something in this style, or I want to play this type of style of music. You have to actually go out there and find people, because just because you're into music doesn't mean your whole wheelhouse of friends is musically talented or even musically aspired to even attempt trying to do that kind of stuff. So it's cool that they have like these functions, and I wanted to give Trevor that chance to kind of explain that stuff because it is really cool. One of the things I would like to know is like, what is it like for the kids that don't have their friends there or people that they already know that they want to kind of try forming up something with? Is there a lot of conflict in that? Is it like a lot of struggling butting heads of like, hey, I don't really want to play that style of music, but you're the only one left?
Since I've been to rock and roll camp since the age of, I think, 12 to now, there's been years where I have been like put in a group and I'm like, well, I don't want to play punk, but I can drum to it, so let's go. Or, yeah, this is a really great rock band, but it's not my cup of tea, so I'm just going to play a 4/4 beat to it. So I've been in that boat, but then also not in that boat where I've had like the perfect group, like when Taylor and Eli started going and we wanted to play metal, it just worked out. So it depends, honestly. Those kids, we do what is called a counselor band, where we'll get like me and another counselor and maybe 2 other kids, and we'll just create something with them so that way they can play their song live, because they still are really passionate about what they're creating. But the other kids aren't like, well, I don't want to play techno pop. So we'll play with them as like a counselor band. But we do try to stick at least one counselor with each band if we can, just so that way there's like the mediation and whatnot. Because some kids are easier to work with than others when it comes to like interacting amongst themselves. So we try to add in like that mediatorship and like that in between, and we call it a counselor band. But it's really their music that they're creating, but we help them finish the product, if that makes sense. Because there's like, oh, there's no drummer, or, oh, there's no guitarist, so we'll help them.
Okay. No, that sounds like a really cool function idea.
Oh, it's great.
I mean, I wish every city had something along those lines.
Same.
I know that after you and me talked about it, that was something that I was like, man, that'd be really cool to try to do. And when people first found me as Papa Bear, I was doing a lot of the stuff out of the Eagles. And that was actually something that I had presented to them, was like, hey, maybe we should set up like a music camp of some sort. I know somebody who's already doing that kind of stuff. He could help me get the formats and play and things like that. Because it's like you said, if we don't teach the next generation or give them the opportunities to have that, it's one of the things that really can kill, aspiring people that love and have those passions. Because I know for me, I didn't have anybody who was like reaching out to me and being like, oh, hey, yeah, you can play on this bill or anything like that. Whereas like one of my biggest things that I do is that I always make it an open door for a Papa Bear show. You're always going to be welcome to perform at my stage. I want kids to get those chops. And there's been shows where people come, it's like, man, I've got a band and we're getting ready to start. I'm like, here's my number. Here's my email. Contact me as soon as you feel like you're ready. All I need from you is at least 20 minutes of music. You give me 20 minutes of music, cool. Let's get you on stage. Let's get your chops going. You're going to have some burns. You're going to have some successes. But at the end of the day, you're going to have a great feeling of like, I did it. I went on stage. I finally did the thing I want to do. And I wish there was a more formulaic way for me to do that in this town. But unfortunately, I haven't found a way to do it yet without a major expense, because you got to rent a hall to do all that stuff and teach the kids. You got to have all the equipment for it. And I can only do so much because I might be a musician, but I'm a singer. So for me, it's like, I have a guitar, I have a little amp, I have a electric drum kit. I don't have a bass. I can't really do that on my own. And trying to find other like-minded people who are down, like, yeah, they can use my stuff. Not that common.
That's the great thing about Rock and Roll Camp for me. And like, I never really, because me and Taylor at Rock and Roll Camp, we're both drummers. I was not into vocals when I was first doing rock camp at all. So like the last 4 years, I mean 5 now of being a vocalist, when I do Rock and Roll Camp, I think about it completely differently. Like I'll bring my drum set and let the kids use it. It's expensive, but I would rather have them learn and have the option to play it. And so like for me, when I was in Rock and Roll Camp as a teenager, me and Taylor, there's only one metal group at Rock and Roll Camp, honestly, and it was always us, and that kind of died off. Now we get some thrash and some punk in there every once in a while, but the hardcore metal ended with my era of Rock and Roll Camp kids. So for me and Taylor both going to Rock and Roll Camp, well, you don't have 2 drummers in a metal band. So it was always Taylor. Taylor was always the preferred. And I'm not saying that in like a negative way or a negative light or anything, but that gave me the opportunity to do something else at Rock and Roll Camp, which was help everybody else get what they need.
Right.
So like, let's say I'm walking around doing my rounds. In my first year as a counselor, I was 18, volunteered my time because I just was so passionate about it. And without Wilson and can't remember everyone's names right now.
It's all good. Don't worry about it.
But without them, I wouldn't be continuing to do music right now. And those guys are very big to me. They're in a band called Point Juncture, Washington, out of Portland. I'm sure Jan's heard of them at least. But they're an indie band, like completely out of my wheelhouse of what I would play. But it gave me the opportunity to help others. And I like that. So like, let's say this band's practicing. They don't have a guitar cable. Well, we have 6 extras. I'm going to let you use one. All right, you need a bass guitar. I'm going to go find one that nobody's using. Oh, you guys need one cymbal, a snare, and a hi-hat. I'm not using mine. Let's make a Franken kit. And so it gave me the opportunity to like help the kids get what they need. And then also it put me into stage rigging and running the stage on the show on Friday and the set list and like all the stage plots and everything. And that's what I like to do. I like, even Wilson's like, dude, you never really had like a wheelhouse you sat in when you were a kid in the camp itself. But now that you're a counselor, I see a whole different light that you bring to it, and you're able to like mediate and think. And that meant a lot to me because I'm passionate about teaching music and just getting it out there and helping people with it.
That's one of the main things I like being in the promoter aspect is it's like people don't realize how much I get the opportunity to talk to bands. And when I say that I like critique the bands, I mean it in a positive aspect. It's one of those things where after a performance is done, I can sit down and like, if I'm seeing that that band is struggling in certain aspects, I can talk with them because I've just listened to your performance. So now I have a good idea of what your style is, what your sound is. Hey, your vocalist is struggling a little bit on these. So what you should do is try to find a way to bring that back, or if any of you can do backup vocals to help relieve what's out of his vocal range, things of that nature. And I get to help a band a lot with that stuff and giving them the input and that experience from what I've learned over the years really inspires me a lot. And that's one of the things I really love about being a promoter is that I get to talk to so many artists, and then so many people in my community ask me questions. And I don't think there's a single week that goes by that someone's not asking me something. Like I had a kid who's hitting me up because she's starting to record again because it's breaking her out of the depression of the pandemic. She's like, I've got an iPad. Is there anything that I can work with? Yes, use GarageBand, get these 2 adapters. That's all you need. Get this power supply for it. And you can now run a guitar into a jack and do that. It's not hard. It's really easy. But it's stuff that they don't understand. But if I'm willing to take that time and show it to them, now they can aspire further and actually play with it and practice with it and learn a DAW system and kind of just work further with it. And that's the biggest thing for me. One of the things I was curious about your camp, though, is that do they do anything in the photography field?
Yes, 100%. So we have 2 different classes. That is, one is rock journalism and one is, we obviously add rock to everything.
Right.
But one is rock journalism. And they go around, and because we have different practice spaces, the Pendleton Arts Center is amazing to us. They let us use the building, every inch of it, every quarter inch of it, and they let us use everything. And so we have different practice spaces. We have main practice spaces where a drum set and a PA is set up. There's 2 of those. So that way when your song is to that point where you want to practice it on a stage with the full live sound, you can. We have those 2 classes. Casey Jarman is amazing. We put the kids out on DSLRs. We have them go out and take photos of the bands. We have them take photos of the counselors. So yes, there is photography in there. And then my favorite part is the zine. We do a magazine every year. Every band that is established that the kids have made, they interview them, they get their picture, they talk to them. So if you don't play music and you're a kid and that's not your thing, but you want to get into articles and doing the photography, there's still that option for you, and you're more than welcome and more than included in the camp.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. They have a whole, I don't know what the word for it is, but next to the paint, they have a full computer lab. That's what it is, computer lab. And we let the kids use all the editing software and all that stuff too. So there's an avenue for anybody who wants to get into music for rock and roll camp.
So I'm going to kind of start straying away from this rock and roll camp talk just because I want to start talking about real world more extensions. Because if people are not near the Pendleton, Oregon area or don't have the ability to travel, I just wanted to get this out because it's such a cool, unique thing that I've never gotten to see anywhere.
Yeah.
So I wanted to at least give it some
my
light.
last thing that I'm thinking about for rock and roll camp and being the stage manager is we group all the kids up before the show starts, and there's a really long set list, sometimes 27, 30 bands, and they only play 1 to 2 songs each, really. But that's a lot of bands and a lot of time and a lot of stage setup and teardown. My favorite part is one year, kids band, really great song they'd made. They practiced it on the stage performance. It's one really great. But then when it came to the show, they were really nervous, 100% nervous. They didn't even want to get on stage. So I was like, well, would it make you feel better if I was up there with you? And they're like, yeah, but you don't know the song or anything. I was like, okay, I'll grab a tambourine and jump around. If it's going to help you feel more comfortable, then I'll be up there with you. And that's my favorite part, is just getting up with the kids and helping them feel comfortable.
Well, that's cool. If anybody wanted to look up more information on that, is there a site or
PendletonCenterForTheArts.org, and they have a whole gamut of different classes and workshops. The Rock and Roll Camp has a tab on there, but it doesn't really go too in depth. But they have tons of classes and stuff.
And
check
that
it
was
out.
One more time?
PendletonCenterForTheArts.org.
Centerforthearts.com.
Look in the description.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll put it in the description of the
we'll
video.
link it in there.
Because I really think that that's an awesome thing. And where we live, I know that a lot of the people that watch this are people who are locals or close by to this area. Yeah. And if that's something that you feel like getting into, I honestly, the next time it comes around and you're doing that, I want to go down there and see what I can do.
Yeah.
To hey, can I be of any benefit to this? Can I teach people? Yeah. Can I
can already tell you yes.
Okay. So, and I'm sure that they would accept the extra hands with experience and stuff like that. So
Totally.
it's one of those things that I'm definitely interested in. And I'm sure even you would be willing to go down and like see what they're doing because you are in the photo aspect of the realm. You could teach them stuff with editing in the computer labs and
Taken
journalism.
1 or 2 photos before.
Yeah, so, yeah, a few.
Yeah, no, we would love to have both of you. I can speak for Addison, who, not that I'm speaking for him, but the new current head of Rock and Roll Camp. He's about it.
Okay.
He's totally about it, and he's a great guy too. He owns the Great Pacific in Pendleton. He's a great guy.
Awesome. All right. So with that being said, now that we've had a chance to kind of let that be a thing.
I kind of wanted to go back and kind of tie it into it. One of the things that you were mentioning, just right there at the end of jumping on stage with the Samporine, the stage fright, the struggle of actually doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an issue for a lot of people who were wanting to start their first band.
Yeah,
I am going to step off screen for just a moment.
That's fine.
Continue.
We'll look at this pretty empty stool right here. But no, Trevor, I think there's a lot to that when it comes to being scared to get out there, being scared to start your first band.
I think that the thing that we do that helps kids the most, like with the whole communication and being awkward around
I'm
people
not talking
you don't
about
know.
kids at this point, though.
Well, no, even adults. Like, there's times where like me and Wilson have sat there and we're like, this is kind of awkward. What are we gonna do about this? And then we fix the issue. But I think with creating a new band or creating a new entity in general, the communication factor is very big. Mm-hmm. Like if you're in a group and you're a metalhead, but you got everyone else around you who wants to play like folk rock, you're not gonna have that mesh,
Or you make folk metal.
Yeah, folk metal.
And I'll love you forever.
Folky metal.
So no, but what I'm saying is like I feel like we've all been in bands. Even Blaine has been in bands once or twice. And I think one of the big things is when you first, if you're not an outgoing person or you have stage fright issues, the idea of approaching people about being in a band can be difficult.
Oh yeah, totally.
So, I mean, with the three of us having been in bands before, successful or otherwise, what would you say is like a solid way to go up to someone, to start talking about being in a band, to start talking about as a band approaching another bandmate, not as a band approaching a promoter?
From a cold hearts aspect, I can answer this one pretty good. So we've been through quite a few members, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I watched Austin's other band play a show, No Room for Cowards. They're like, it's my band, I guess, too, but like they're... What genre would you say No Room?
Dude, you're the genre guy.
We call them surf slam.
Yeah, surf slam. I forget about that. So they're like post-punk, post-hardcore. They're really upbeat and good music. And I saw them play one day, and I was like, God damn, that guy's an amazing guitarist.
Ole.
Ole. And then, so I went home after that. I think me and Carl drove the Miata out to Walla Walla when I had it, and that's how I met Austin, was watching them play a house show. So a couple days pass. Ian's like, yeah, I'm probably going to be leaving the band soon. You might want to think about a replacement, and we're still on good terms. So I message Austin. I'm like, hey man, that was a sick set you put on the other night at that house show. And he's like, oh yeah, thanks dude, thanks. I was like, so do you like heavy music? And he's like, what do you mean by heavy? I'm like, Suicide Silence.
Like Wolf with the Gwethiv?
Wolf with the Gwethiv. But that's how we started talking. I was like, do you like heavy music? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, do you ever think about playing heavy music? And he's like, well, yeah. I was like, all right, you should come to practice on Saturday. And then that's how it started. So It's like, if you have something in common, that's the best way to start. But then if you open up a conversation with a musician you like, you never know what they might be into. So just like, hey, I like your music playing. Would you ever be interested in this? Or have you ever thought about playing this type of music? And that's how I do it.
So my experience would be that mine is just finding anyone that had a conversation about music. So it was one of those things where it's like, as a singer, I can't really, it's very awkward for me because as a singer, if I was looking for a new band, I didn't know how to approach it. It was one of those things like, I don't play an instrument. I mean, I can tell you, it's like, these are what I aspire to sound like. These are the vocal things that I know I can do. Mm-hmm. And the stuff that you can do doesn't always mean that's all you can do.
Exactly.
But when you're young and you're thinking about it, it's like, oh yeah, no, I can do this. And then you're just kind of setting it. So you don't really think about like, well, maybe I could play around with that a little bit or do this. I think being experienced with time helps you evolve that. But my hardest thing was I felt like I didn't really contribute anything, which is nowadays the most ironic thing for me to think, because the front man is literally like the epitome of bands. And I don't mean that as an offense. I mean, you can have badass guitarists and bass players and drummers and all that stuff, but it's one of those things where it's like the front man is usually, or front woman is usually the person that everybody recognizes when talking about an artist. And when I'm young, though, it's like, but I can't play nothing. I can't do nothing. So I would literally go up to people, and I still do it to this day, and I absolutely love it, is I have recordings, and if I can't, like, if I get a song idea in my head, I'll be sitting in my car, it's like, ooh, that'd be really cool. So I'd be like,
I love listening to those too, by the way.
and I will record that shit, and I will hand it to people. It's like, if you could play this in a guitar, and obviously I'm not telling you what tone to play in, but just I'm giving you like an idea of the structure of it. Is that something that like sounds like entertaining to you and enthralls you into like, oh, I could do that. That sounds cool. I like that. So what I'll do is I'll have a couple of vocal clips like that, and I'll do that. And then, just for reference like that, dun, 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 and then the next one I'll be like, and then I'll show them those two clips, and it's like, that's the idea. And they're like, dude, that's dope. I totally like the sound of that. Let's see what we can make happen. But when you're first starting out, you kind of like have to figure out like, what do you like? Do you like this music?
Exactly.
I don't know if you like it. Can I contribute anything?
Another factor that goes into that being young is your demographic of where you live.
Yes.
Yeah.
I grew up in a town of 100 people.
Yeah.
Quite literally. So I was never going to find bandmates. I was never going to find a group to play with in my 3 block by 3 block town. If I did not have rock and roll camp and my brother willing to drive me every day 30 miles to it, and just all the little in-between things, and meeting the guys from Point Juncture and the Deer of the Doe, I wouldn't be playing music right now, because there was no avenue for it for me where I was living.
See, I had troubles with finding anybody with that stuff, because it was one of those things where it was like, I don't know anybody.
Yeah,
and that was
same.
just it. Like, I loved music, and I didn't really get into like rock and metal and stuff until my later teens. I wasn't into it like my whole life. Like I said in the beginning, it's like I was raised, and the hardest thing I listened to was U2. So I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, once I finally discovered it, I found other people that liked the styles of music, but not anybody that actually played any of those styles of music.
For me, like I grew up in a little bigger town, but for me the big thing was the people who I found who wanted to play together. We all had different, not necessarily ideas about how the music should sound. We didn't generally agreed on but we had different ideas on how we wanted to progress as a band. We had a drummer who, fucking rock star, wanted to practice 4 times a week, and I'm like, dude, I ain't got time for that.
Right.
And he was like, well, yeah, but I want to go get signed to a label. I'm pretty sure he is signed to a label with his current band, so props to you. A lot of stuff like that where you're like, I would love to practice 4 times a week, but I can't.
Right. And that's one of the things that I think beginning bands really need to figure out too in the beginning, is once you've actually found a group, and it's like, okay, we're starting to write music. And a group doesn't necessarily mean the full ensemble.
No.
You can be a band and start working towards your goals without a drummer, without a bassist, without a guitarist. You can still make those forward steps. And then when you find the right person, if you're able to do like some kind of a rough recording, even if it's from your phone, and just put it online. I mean, one thing I can definitely say is much easier today to find a band than it was in my generation to find the band. And I'm sure for previous's, they'll say the same, because it was putting in a paper and an ad in the paper, or having to go to every show and talking to every artist like, hey man, I love your style. I'm looking for someone. Oh, well, I'm already in a band, but I know this guy, it was a bunch of conversation.
Every long-haired dude at the dive bar.
Every single one of them. And if they wore a Slayer shirt, you knew it was like, he knows somebody,
Exactly.
See, for me, it was even harder because, like I said, I'm a drummer by trade. So is Taylor. So every opportunity for like a band or practicing or anything we did back in the day, it was auto. And I'm not saying this in a bad way, but Taylor was the go-to. Because I lived 30 miles away. I wasn't around every weekend. I went to a different school. We never like hung out like that. So for me, finding And creating a band without rock and roll camp was impossible. But then when I turned 22, I was like, oh, I'm doing Cold Hearts finally. I'm doing my thing. And I started, like you said, I didn't even have any other band members when I started Cold Hearts. I just had the idea. And then I hit up Carl, Ian, Dustin, Paul, pretty much everybody I knew who was musically talented and not in a band at the time, because I thought I was going to have to drum. So I never thought to ask Taylor originally. So I was like, well, I'm going to drum in this. But then it ended up being, well, no, Carl wanted to play drums. So I was like, okay, I can finally get in the vocal booth. And that was big for me.
Well, anyway, to kind of loop back to what we were kind of getting into the topic of, once you have that established, you really do need to figure out like how you want to progress.
Right.
Yeah.
Realistically, if you're doing anything more than 2 a week, kudos to you. I mean, power to you. If you have the time and ability to do that, that is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Realistically, I think as a musician, I would say if you could at least do 1 a week, that's probably good, especially as a starting out.
Yeah.
Cold Hearts in the beginning, any and every minute, me and Carl weren't at work because nobody else in the band worked at the time. We were practicing.
Right.
Every
And that's
single
fine.
day.
And that's easy for the 2 people that might be there, but maybe the others can't. And if you can't accept the fact of like the scheduling aspect of it, you have to learn to work with it to some degree.
It's a second job.
It is.
No.
Yeah.
And
by
if you're super
soul.
dedicated to it and it's something you want and it's something you are going to make happen, it's going to take up a lot of time.
Yeah.
It really does. It eats a lot of time, but if you're willing to make that time worth it and put in the hard work, then you're going to get 10 times more back out of it. Now, if you're in a band and you're like, yeah, we practice like once every 6 months and we don't really do much and this and that.
That's not a band.
That's not a band.
That's a hobby project.
Just a jam once every 6 months.
No,
Right.
but when we're talking about bands, and I know like, for me, like we kind of settled on, we first started out twice a week, eventually went to once a week, eventually once every 2 weeks, eventually it petered out. And that happens, and that's fair. It's just when you start a band, you got to make sure you're all on the same commitment level.
Yeah.
And that first energy of, oh my gosh, we're doing this, let's go, that's great. But is this a group of people who can motivate each other to keep that commitment?
Yeah.
And that's a really big thing.
Having that common goal is important. Like, are we going to take this further? Are we going to continue
Do
to
we want to
record
play
music?
local shows?
Are we going to, like you said, are we going to become a regional and then try to become a national? What are we doing right now to go further? And that's a
See,
big one.
I never had those aspirations when starting out. When starting out, my first goal was, okay, we need 7 songs. Like there was no talk of like, are we going to be national? Are we going to get signed? Is that our goals? And I get for some people that's a real thing. And especially in today, with like I said, the internet changed everything. You can become an overnight star easily if you know how to market yourself the right way.
I also think the other thing is, it's a matter of like, do you want to talk goals that big? I think having, wanting to write 7 songs is a perfectly valid goal for a band. For some bands, they're like, okay, we want to be a nationally signed band signed to a major label. We're going to start by having to write 7 songs, something along those lines, and that's fine.
Well, I think if you go into the mindset of you're going into a band with, I'm going to get signed, I'm going to get put on national labels, I'm going to be doing all this stuff. I think there comes like a certain point where it's like you start over critiquing yourself. I think the first thing for
it's
me,
a lot of pressure to put on yourself
when getting into a band is I just want to make 7 songs. Let's hear what 7 songs in our current format sounds like.
Yeah.
Make those 7 songs, sit down, listen back to those 7 songs. If you don't have the money to record it, don't record it yet, but get a feel for these songs, really practice them, hammer them down to where you know them. And it's one of those things where then at that point, now as a beginning band, you need to take the time and truly critique yourself. When you're first starting off, every song is gold. It's like, yeah, we wrote another song, we're going to be badasses, and that's cool. And it's good to have that excitement, to have that level. It took years for me to realize the difference between a good song and a good live song. It took me years to figure out the difference between this is a good emotional song, but not emotional songs are not your number one reach. Your most successful songs are going to be the, in my genre of metal is the heavy slammers that get people bumping and moving and want to make them like pump iron for an hour. You start realizing that like certain things work well and certain things don't. So when you first start, I just want 7 songs. Now, out of those 7 songs, I would sit down and I'd be like, okay, so this song, and this song really are fucking fantastic. These 2 we just kind of threw together. You know, it's like, okay, we had some riffs, we tried to force them together.
Right.
It didn't really pan out in the best sense. And you have to be willing to sit down and have those conversations. And I think once you've had enough songs for a live set, which is 7 songs, I think is a fair number for a live set.
I aimed for 5 with Cold Hearts just to get 5 songs going.
Depending on the length of your songs, so forth and whatnot. But I like to think to myself, I can fill a 25-minute slot.
Yeah, my goal was 20 with a little bit of banter in between, because I knew that's what we were going to be getting as an opener deathcore band, was a 20-minute, 15-minute slot.
Right. Yeah. So, and then I just go through, and I like to take those 7 songs, I like to analyze them, and then I like to take them on stage, because sometimes as an artist we overanalyze ourselves. So, like, I hate my vocals. I absolutely cannot stand them. I don't know why I'm a fucking vocalist. It's just what everybody likes me doing, I guess.
Hashtag same.
Right. But that's exactly it. Is as a musician, we are our worst critics.
Yep.
And we screw ourselves up so bad because what we think sounds like, man, that's garbage. We show it to people. It's like, dude, that is fire.
Right.
You know, and it's just because, and it's like when I listen to these podcasts back, like I've mentioned it to you guys multiple times. I hear the podcasts and it's like, that's not my voice. And you guys are like, no, that is absolutely 100% your voice.
Yep.
But I hear differently in my own head. So when I'm talking, I don't hear things the same way I do through this. So it sounds off. It sounds wrong because I'm hitting it in the notes that are in my head.
Yep.
Whereas what's coming out is not the same for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to really address that is to always wear headphones or always wear in-ear monitors.
Yeah. And the same thing we talked about the other day. Whenever I'm editing these, I hate my accent.
Well,
right. And I really don't notice your accent in the slightest.
Yeah.
And your laugh, I think it's actually great because it's a genuine laugh.
well, yeah, but I fucking hate it. So
right.
it's
But
like,
the point is that we're over critiquing ourselves. So it's good to take those 7 songs, analyze them, see what you think, then get on stage a couple times, at least twice with those songs. And what you're going to do is the first time, nobody's going to know your music.
Yep.
So you're not going to have crowd reaction the same way that you envision the big guys do. Like when you go and see a band and it's like your 5th time seeing them, you know the songs, you're thrashing at the right points, you know when the breakdowns are, you know all that stuff. You're brand new. Nobody knows anything about you. Even the most experienced bands, if they drop a brand new song that no one has ever heard before, there's no recordings of it, there's no way to hear it beforehand, you don't know how to thrash, you don't know how to bob. And that as a promoter, I have noticed over the years, is that brand new songs, just because the crowd's not moving, doesn't mean it's bad. It means that, I don't know where the drops are. I don't know how to thrash to this. I don't know when to do the breakdown, because you got to learn it. So a lot of bands will think that their song bombed, but when in reality it's like, no, I really love that song. It's just
I don't know.
Hadn't heard it yet, so I didn't know what to do. I can bang my head a little bit, but I'm not going to throw down like I do with the songs you know.
Right.
So then that gives you the second aspect of it. Okay, now you know what songs need a little bit more work. You're being honest with yourself, and it's like, okay, we want to evolve in a way that out of those 7 songs, these 3 were the ones that we like. Okay, so let's make that like cool. We know what we put into making those songs. What made that fire happen? Then when you go to your live performances, maybe some of those ones you didn't pick are actually getting good crowd responses, or people are coming up and saying, dude, I really loved the 3rd song you did. Oh, that wasn't one of the ones we thought was really good. And it's like, oh, cool. We're starting to get the feedback. By the 2nd time, if it's the same, if there's some of the same people, you'll start seeing them move around. It's usually not until about your 4th or 5th show, if you don't have an album out, that people are really going to start connecting with your music, because they've heard it enough times now that they can do that. That's why I always tell people, even if it's not the best quality audio in the world,
do it.
Get it online.
Yeah,
get something out there for people to hear.
Absolutely.
Now that doesn't mean like record from my phone and say screw it. But what it does mean is that if you can catch live video footage of your performance, throw it. That nobody is going to hold an offense to you for
Not
having
at
bad
all.
quality, because it's something. Always show off your live performance with that stuff.
Speaking of which, I'm going to kind of tie this into you as a promoter real quick. I know you have the capability to record the audio at your live shows.
Yes.
If you're a new band, ask your show's sound guy, ask your show's promoter, like, hey, can you just pop an SD card in for us?
It's not always that simple.
No.
If it's possible.
If it now
possible.
a lot of people are starting to use new higher tech. The ones that have the SD cards, I find are not the most common. So
True.
like the Behringer X32 is a pretty common one, and I don't believe they have the SD slot. if I
The
remember
newest version, the Behringer Wing does.
Okay.
So all I'm saying is, if there's even a chance, it's worth asking.
Right.
Yeah.
But usually what I was going to say is that it's I don't want them to have the wrong terminology is what I'm
Right,
fixing right now.
Yeah.
If you say, can you pop in an SD card? Oh, my board doesn't have an SD card.
It's usually a USB out.
Usually what you want to do is you want to ask, hey, is there any way we can record our live performance? So if they're even using so forth and whatnot, maybe they have to bring the sound guy's laptop or so whatever. Like my Soundcraft, yeah, I could do it to a USB out, but I'd rather bring the laptop because I've got the expansion card for it and it's going to give you that actual genuine quality to it.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it'll also break it down into the individual tracks. And then the guy might say, I can give you either the raw recording of the live show, or if you want to kick me like an extra $100, I'll do some quick fix editing real quick. Nothing super snazzy like a high-end
Right.
studio, but I'll do some stuff to it to give you a better sounding quality CD. And a lot of youngsters don't understand that that's a real thing. And that's why I offer that at my shows now is kind of like, you need something here.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
and
That's
one of
kinda
the
what I'm
bands that
saying.
actually took us up on that was this is back when Jakob and Nate were doing the soundboarding. Was Sui Generis, and that live album, oh my god, that sounded so good. And we were running that out of the Soundcraft SI Expression 3 or 2.
I mean,
think it's the two.
realistically, yeah.
Well, mine's a 2. I think they have the 3, which
I
is
mean,
the
it doesn't
30.
really matter.
No, because I took Jakob with me to Spokane to run sound for us when we did our mini tour with Victims, and he said it was the same exact board.
Okay, so it is a 2 then.
Yeah.
But either way, it's just like, that's a huge deal. And that was their first CD. They hadn't put out any music recordings in like almost 8 years or something like that. And it's like, guys, you need to get this music out. And I loved every second of it. And I think they only ended up charging them like $100 or $150. And there you go. You have a full set, which I think they played 8 songs that night. And it's out there.
Yeah.
You have it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you have absolutely no other way to record yourself in any quality form, that might be an option.
Even if you do have a way of doing it, that's probably more expensive. Unless you own it yourself.
That's
out.
what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it might be the better way to go for starting out.
To tie back into your playing shows and nobody knows your music because you don't have any out yet. For Cold Hearts, and this is just my personal experience, we were blessed with having an amazing practice space with a full PA and a stage, a full venue. So when we were practicing our live set to play our first show ever, which was Nightmare Before Christmas show in Walla Walla, we kind of knew no one's going to know our music. No one's going to know when our breakdowns hit. No one's going to know when to mosh. So if we get even one mosh pit out of this, we get one person up front, banging their head, cool, that's awesome. But being able to practice in the venue and already being on a stage, we kind of like made our stage performance work to where we actually got really good in crowd interaction.
Because you had that actual
Exactly.
atmosphere
Yeah.
to work in. So
Yeah.
a lot of starters don't have that.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's really
And-
hard for some bands because they don't know what their shit's going to sound like in a giant venue versus a practice space at home or a practice space in a garage with no PA.
Well, that, and even if they do have a PA, let's say they do have a good practice space. Let's say they do have a good garage or something like that, but they have like a car in there too, so they can't move around to the
Exactly.
full extent. That's something that's very important, is that when you are starting off as a young band, don't be afraid to actually perform
Yeah.
while practicing. Now, if you don't have the space for it, you're going to learn your chops on stage the same way I did. And you're going to be awkward at first. You're not going to know what you're doing. You're going to bump into each other a couple times. It's not a bad thing.
No.
If even the worst things that can happen to you when starting out as a young band, take it as experience and learn from it.
Yeah.
The worst shit that's ever happened to me when I first started out, I learned and I used it as a learning tool. Like, okay, now I know when I'm getting ready for this drop on the song, don't fucking stand next to my guitarist who likes to swing upward when he's playing at that point.
Exactly.
And it's because I got cracked in the skull and it hurt like hell.
My
you know?
point here is when I go to a show and I don't know the openers, I watch their performance, because if they're all like dipped down and the music's kind of fading out and the guitarist is doing some ambient like background like dun 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 dun, I know there's a breakdown coming. Then I hear the drummer go and I'm like, well, I might not know this breakdown, but I know what that cue is and I'm about to flail.
And that's where I was kind of leading into next, was the fact that you can watch from the pros like on YouTube and all that stuff and kind of get a feel for when like that's going to happen. There's so many live videos out there now you can watch and get experience just from watching online. And like you
Leo
said,
Sinpaniewski.
and like you said, cues. Depending on the style of music you're in, there are ways to indicate like this is coming.
Yeah.
So you best be getting ready for it. And you can learn from
If I'm watching a beatdown band that I've never seen live or heard their music, everything goes silent and I hear a cup bell go ding, I know what's coming.
Right.
But there's so many things, so many ways to do that. And honestly, like as a frontman, a vocalist, there's ways to do it as well. You know, the words "let's fucking go" alone.
My favorite one has to be, all right, everybody, left to right, front to back, side to side, let's fucking do this. That's my favorite one.
I think my favorite is, what's up, Denny's?
21 letters.
What the fuck's up, Denny's? We are not a
What's up, Denny's? Anyway,
He took me on a special date. Oh, he did? Yes, it was the sweetest place ever. What the fuck's up, Denny's?
anyway, it's a meme. Look it up. It's awesome.
If you don't know, you should know.
Don't look it up. Just look up what the fuck's up, Denny's. Anyway, so a couple of other bullet points. So your gear. When you're starting out as a band, you don't need top gear. I know it is so cool to be like, yeah, I've got this signature series guitar or
I got a
drum
full
kit.
stack Ampeg 8x10 with a Sans amp and fuck mess of boogie head that I could not afford, but I bought it.
Right. And now if you can afford the gear, do your thing. Do you?
Right.
I mean, kudos to you, and you know what you want, then fine, whatever. When you're starting out though, I'm trying to think of this conversation as like, not as like, I'm already a musician and I'm going into another band. Like I'm still trying to formulate what I want to do.
So one of
And
my first bands,
you're gonna cut me off like that.
Oh, sorry.
Huh? That's fine.
I thought you were talking about aesthetic.
No. So it's one of those things where you don't need the newest, greatest, latest guitar. You don't need the newest, greatest, latest amps. You don't need the drums. You don't need any of that. You just need something to be playing. And that comes with time. Now, if you can afford to do it, kudos to you, like I said. But in reality, like, I don't need some crazy, like, I'm just going to throw out random names. I don't play guitar. Please don't sue me. I don't need a new Schecter guitar.
Okay.
You know, I don't need the Hellraiser. I don't need any of that shit, right? Like, I just need, even if it's just a little Fender,
Telecaster.
cheapy Telecaster, whatever, just start playing. The biggest thing is finding your tone. The biggest thing is finding like what's the style you're going for. Now, those guitars will give you better tones with better pickups and all of that stuff. But once you've actually found your style, then you should worry about buying the bigger gear, in my opinion.
The thing there is like, I have seen people go on stage with guitars they bought for, $15 at a yard sale and kill it on stage much harder than anyone who's still waiting, saving up money for the perfect guitar would.
Right.
Doing it is the biggest thing. At the end of the day, it all comes down to that. You got to do it.
And the reality of it is too, is that there's so many pedals, there's so many things out there that will take care of a lot of those problems for you. And if you're recording to like a DAW or anything like that, there's so many effects you can input onto your plugins.
So many plugins.
It doesn't matter. So, I mean, really it's about getting the experience, learning what style you actually want to go for, then grow your gear from there. And think about what you actually need. Yes, the 8x10 cab might be fantastic, but in reality, like, it's just a big ass heavy piece of gear you're going to have to lug around. It's the aesthetic of it. You don't need the latest, greatest, biggest thing. You just need something that works for a starting band.
Yeah.
The other thing that I've talked to a particular band about is like they were all looking to upgrade their gear and they were going to pool their money together, which is it really depends on who you're doing that with.
Right.
But I told these guys, look, if you're gonna pull together $5,000, buy a used van and go touring instead.
Yeah.
You have functional gear.
So we went into Guitar Center once, and our guitarist was looking. This is a way long ago band. I think I was like 18, 19. But he's like, yeah, I need a half stack, 4x12, need head, everything. And the Guitar Center employee's like, why? This 2x12 combo has way more function and way more versatility and is way better for the price, which was $600 cheaper than what you're looking at for a half stack. Why do you need the half stack so bad? Well, I need half stack. Why? This is cheaper and better.
Right.
So it depends on what you're going for. Aesthetic is not everything, I found out. I used to be that guy, like, oh, we're all wearing black pants, white shoes, windbreaker. If you guys don't show up in that, then you aren't fucking playing. And everyone looks at me like, why? I'm like, aesthetic. And now I'm just like, fuck it, I don't care. Let's go play a show.
You wear volleyball booty shorts. Let's say thick.
I've seen
Soon.
when it comes to aesthetic things like that. You know, honestly, if you've got like I said, the cab you bought at a garage sale somewhere, freaking great.
What's funny too
Take
is
the spray
that
paint to it. Go wild.
if
Yeah.
you really want to look for new gear too, as a youngster getting started, talk to other bands. I mean, what
Yeah.
they're trying to get rid of to upgrade for them might be like the greatest thing you've ever had
Exactly.
the opportunity to play on, because they have the years and years of experience. So they're ready to go to that next step.
Also-
Whereas you're just starting.
Some of my
And-
greatest come ups have been that way.
The other thing is, you know, it's not at all dissimilar to used cars. Once you've taken one of those cabs on tour, that value drops.
Yeah. It's just like if you go out, the only thing you're paying for aesthetically is like, oh, an orange cab with Celestion 30s versus a crate cab with Celestion 30s. You want to know what the difference is? One of them's orange and has the orange logo on it. All the internals are exactly the same, but you're paying $500 more for the orange one because of the engineering and the orange. But it's the same thing. They run the same speakers. They run the same ohms. They run the same impedance. You're paying for the aesthetic.
Orange,
Right.
if you want to sponsor us, we'll retract that statement.
That's fair. But the big thing too
Not
is
even my favorite brand.
It's one of those things where it's like I've had so many bands that have been playing for like 8-9 years and they haven't upgraded their gear because they focused on the stage, the performance, the music, and that's awesome. But then there's these new kids that come out, and I mean, I've given away bass cabs, I've given away bass guitars. I gave a bass guitar to a kid in a punk band that was just starting out. I gave a bass cab to one of the members of JFKFC because he needed one because they were sharing like a dual speaker guitar cab for the guitarist and the bass player. And I was
Interesting.
like, it worked, but I was like,
Was it like
you need a bass
an
cab.
Omega cab or something like that?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But I gave him a bass cab and I was like, here, the only thing you need to do is that the pot's a little dirty. So you need to, because it's going to crackle on you until you find that sweet spot. So get that cleaned out or go down to the place, pay them $50 and they'll
And
get
they'll
that
just
all.
rewire it real
Yeah,
quick,
just
yeah.
get it done for you real fast.
I like that.
And that cab, I'd had it for like 6-7 years just sitting in a garage. I don't play bass.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and my kids weren't interested in it. So I was like, okay, well, there's no point in this. But there are people out there with gear that's just sitting. There's nothing wrong with looking at the yard sales. There's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. You don't have to be the biggest, latest, greatest. Okay, anyway, we talked about that. Let's move on.
That's right.
You have notes. Is there
Yeah.
anything that we haven't hit for you yet?
We've gone over a lot of everything that I've got in here, but another thing for like beginning bands that I see happen too often is they're more interested in, we keep saying the word, the aesthetic, the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, yeah, that's there if you want to do that, but for me, being a musician, I fell off of that a while ago. So just be careful with
Okay,
that.
so what I was going to say on that front is that I have had multiple bands where I have left because there's been alcoholics and drug abusers. And now, if you're getting into the metal or rock scene for the sex, drugs, rock and roll, you don't need it. I
No.
can tell you that right now. Now, granted, are there some greats out there who have done some stuff like off of LSD and tripping balls and shit like that? Yeah, I won't
Totally.
deny that. But
It doesn't mean I need to be around it.
yeah.
right, and
Just
I mean,
be careful with what you go into and what you put yourself around, because there's been situations that I'm just not going to talk about that I've been in that have made me extremely uncomfortable, and I'm like, why am I here? Why am I doing this?
right.
Oh,
and-
it's for music. No, this isn't music. This is just a bunch of dudes with drugs and guns.
Right. And the big thing is that if you do have a group of friends, you're going to learn either the hard way or the hard way. Like there's no winning when it comes to that. And it's going to either be like you're on tour, one of your guys has drugs and you guys get busted.
Yep.
Or it's going to be one of your guys is going to fucking OD. Or it's going to be one of those things where it's like you can't trust them to show up because they're too busy getting high all the freaking time. It's one of the things, and alcohol is just as bad. Do not even kid yourself on that. The
Yeah.
alcohol can destroy just as hard
Personally,
as drugs
can attest to that.
and I cannot tell you how many times it freaked me out when it's like, okay, I need to go to sleep after, driving so far. And then one of the other guys says, yeah, okay, I'll drive. Then they got tired while I was sleeping and they gave it to the guy who'd been drinking
Yeah.
the whole friggin' time. So he's in the back of the van pounding beers while nobody's looking at him. And he gets behind the wheel. And then next thing you know, we're in a ditch.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck happened here? Why weren't you driving? And he's like, oh, I got tired too. So I went to go lay down. He said he was good. I was like, were you drinking? And he's like, yeah. I was like, fuck. tour's done.
Yeah.
I mean, tour's done and that band's done.
Yeah.
Period. Like,
You're lucky if everyone makes it out of there alive.
we're lucky none of us got hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It fucked up the vehicle, but we're lucky we didn't die.
Exactly.
And it's cool to have drinks. It's cool to do all that. Someone needs to be responsible.
Exactly.
Please make sure. And I don't care if they come off as like the dad of the group or not, because that's what I've been in every band I've ever been in, is the dad of the group.
Hey, at least you get called dad. I get called mom.
Fair enough.
It's an attitude thing.
My next point, and that ties directly into that. If you're in a group, a rap group, a jam band, a cover band, whatever you're doing and you're a part of, know your boundaries and set your limits.
Yes.
Because if you don't, and you are constantly jumping over every hurdle for anybody in your band or your group, and they see that, and who knows what kind of person they are on the inside, they will take advantage of that and run with it. If you're always willing to pay for the gas bill, if you're always willing to pay the bar bill, if you're always willing to pay for food, it could be something even as simple as picking up a case of water for practice. And that can be preyed on. So just learn your boundaries and limits, what you're willing to deal with and not deal with.
So what I was going to say on that front, it kind of ties into that. Well, it really ties into that, is that you need to find people that you trust to actually put forth toward the dream. If you've got a buddy, you know, okay, let's say your band is made up of 5 buddies, but one of those buddies is dirt poor. Like, he has no money whatsoever. It doesn't mean that they have to put forth in the aspect of money. It can be in the aspect of like, hey guys, I know that we've got a show coming up, so I wanted to do some flyer designs or something like that, because I know I don't have any money, but I wanted to do that. Or, okay, they're not graphically talented. Cool. I went online and I made sure that, you know, I promoted the shit out of the show. I'm tagging everybody. I'm doing my thing. I'm trying to put flyers out. It's not about money so much as it's about effort put forth.
Yeah.
And you really want people that are going to put that effort forth. And for some of them, it's that. For some of them, it's, hey, I've got money. For some of them, it's, hey, I'm willing to take the time to drive from here to here to get the proper gear that we need. Right. Or, hey,
I'll be the guy networking. I'll be the guy dealing with the drunks at the show.
I'll be the DD every night. You know, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just make sure that you can rely on each other, because you don't want to be that guy. I've been in too many bands where I'm the only one with any money and only drive to do anything. And it breaks my heart every time, because it's like, you're excited, you're building music, you're doing cool shit. Then when it comes down time to like make a CD or go on a run or any of that stuff, go to shows even, they're not even helping you unload the fucking vehicle. They're off inside already ordering beers when it's like, guys, we're bringing in cabs. Come on, we got to get stuff done. I'm the singer. That stereotype of, oh, look at the singer. You know, everyone's hauling in gear and the singer's just chilling. I am the guy hauling in all the gear.
Same. On
carries
tour,
his whole microphone.
on our last
I'll
tour.
tell you what, the day anybody says that that's all I do is the day I clock them in the damn mouth.
The last tour, we were all so tired and the weather was really bad throughout all the drives that Matt and everyone was asleep when we were loading into Salt Lake City, and I just did it all myself. I didn't give a crap. Jesse helped me, but he had a bad knee. He had dislocated his knee really badly, and I was just thankful that he was on the tour with us. But I was like, yeah, I'll push this cab. I'll push this flight case. Oh, I'll push this one too. Oh, and guitars, I'll bring those in.
The other thing too is like, know where your boundaries lie in terms of, you know, they can be your buddies, they can be your bandmates, they can be whatever you want to make of them. But put your boundaries there too.
Yeah.
You know, if you're like,
still
you know,
a human being.
Right. If you're like, hey, you know what, this is just for my music and that's great. But not every bandmate I've ever had needs to, you know, meet all my kids, stuff like that. Like, they're part of your life. They don't have to be part of every part of your life. You can have your own life besides your band still.
See, I actually disagree with that.
Okay.
I think that a band should be close. I think that now hear me out. Hear me out on this first. Do I think that there is a separation between band and personal life? Oh, yeah. One of my biggest arguments, and if I'm wrong on this, you guys are welcome to tell me. I have said this to every band I have ever been in at least a dozen times. I am sick and tired of only showing up just to play music and walk away. I want to be friends. If we're going to spend this much damn time around each other, we should know some things about each other. We should be able to hang out away from the band room. I have invited my bands over for barbecues just to hang out at my house. We're just going to sit down, have some food. If we talk about music stuff, like, hey man, it'd be really cool if we could try to set up a tour in this area. That's fine. But we need to hang out away from the band room and away from bars. It doesn't, that seems to be the only two places any band ever gets together. And it's like, I want to introduce you to my kids. And if there's somebody in my band that I'm uncomfortable introducing to my family, I should not be in that band. I mean, that's first place. That's my, because I invite my wife, I invite my kids to shows. If I can't trust them around that, I don't need to be in a band with you.
I've been in a band with some shady people before, but
right, and that's why I learned that limit a long time ago. It's like I just won't put myself in those situations.
See, I agree with you. I think with Cold Hearts, we used to, before pandemic times, we'd do band dates where me and Austin and Taylor would link up, go get a pizza, and just hang out and play games.
Yeah, sit around, play some video games, have a barbecue.
Yeah,
and even if you're having drinks, that's fine. The point is it's not at the practice place and it's not at a bar.
Yeah.
It needs to be at a house and have some drinks. It needs to be at a place where you know there's nothing you need to worry about. There's no huge major expenses to worry about. It's just eat, hang out. I mean, shit, even go out and just, hey, let's all go to the music store.
Right.
Let's go to Guitar Center or Ted Brown or
I used
whatever.
to cook breakfast for the band almost every weekend. Just
I
have
mean,
breakfast.
Just a reason to sit down and talk. And it doesn't always have to be about band conversation. You can have other conversations. But practice time, and this is another topic too, is practice time is practice time. You should not be having conversations for hours on end about your car that you're building, or
Captain America,
or the last Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Or, if you have a quick conversation or something, that's fine, whatever. But if you have like a 3-hour window that you guys are supposed to be practicing, and an hour and a half to 2 hours of that has just become conversation time.
However, if the conversation is just purely about Godzilla versus King Kong, I'm okay with that.
Right. Godzilla for sure. Godzilla is the king of the monsters. You two suck. They both said Kong is going to win, and I am done with these two, just so we're all clear. Godzilla is king of the monsters. Just because he puts king in front of Kong doesn't mean that anything to me. As far as I'm concerned, King Kong stands for those things that my dogs chew on, just bigger. Okay? So
can we roll that back real quick? Because I've never said that King Kong would win. I've always been Team Godzilla.
Are you Team Godzilla?
Yeah,
you better be Team Godzilla.
It was just
no, it was you and my kids.
Yeah.
You made them traitors. That's what the problem was.
They spoke before me.
You're exiled, motherfucker.
Okay.
King Kong can suck Wong. Anyway, what were we talking about?
I don't know.
Yeah, so hey, look at that. Not talking about other shit for a long period of time while I practices.
My point,
but utilize your practice time. Truly learn how to do that. Go ahead.
My point with practicing is like when you get to practice, chill for a minute. That's what we do. Smoke a cigarette, drink some water.
Oh, yeah. The first 20, 30 minutes,
catch up.
I get it.
But if that takes more than an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you've got a 5-hour window to practice, and you're
I'm glad you have a 5-hour window to practice.
Well,
yeah, he doesn't have a car.
Realistically. But
yeah, he's stuck there.
I'm just theorizing here. Bear with me. So, like, if you've got a 5-hour window to practice, and 2.5, 3 hours of that is spent just having beers, talking, smoking a cigarette, then why didn't you do that outside of band practice?
And that's my thing. I think if you go to practices and you treat practice as this is business time, and then you hang out away from the practice space, even if it's only once a month or something like that, you're less inclined to waste your practice time.
Exactly.
You're more inclined to utilize it because you've been having conversations and friendly hangouts and stuff like that.
Right, but that's from like, it's kind of the same as, you and your coworkers going out for drinks.
On that same topic, if you have a band thread for conversations, it drives me damn near insane. I'm going to bring it up. I apologize.
Band chat.
But for bands that are doing like a little bit of conversation, so like Facebook Messenger or things of that nature, where you have a forum where you guys are all talking. Facebook Messenger is kind of the big one. You can tag everybody in it and you just make a chat that's just for all of you. There should be one for personal business and there should be one for band business. Okay. You need to know the difference between the two. There's nothing more infuriating because everybody has different schedules. And there's nothing more infuriating than when my band is throwing out meme after meme and doing all this stuff and like joking and trying to have all these conversations. I can't shut my phone off because if one of my semi drivers at my real job breaks down, I need to be able to be woken up by the call so I can get up and figure out how to get him towed, mechanic shop, or have to go pick him up.
I remember the pizza that started with no messages on your phone and ended with 72 messages on your phone.
Right. It's one of those things where it's like I couldn't even sit down for a meal without getting blown up 72 times. And it's just like, guys, you got to stop. If you guys want to have a personal conversation, do it in a personal chat. Don't do it on the band page. That should be for, hey, we need to meet up for this, or hey, we need to get this money together for the recording guy, or so forth and whatnot. It should be a business aspect.
See, we've dealt with that.
Yeah.
Cold Hearts, we've had issues with that. Like,
and
very big ones.
You don't want to have to go like, okay, like when do we have to record and what was the address again? You have to scroll past
And that's the other
100 different memes.
See, but we've learned though, like when we're on a serious kick, there's no memes, there's no in between banter. Like if we're talking like, hey, we're booking recording studio time, that's the only thing we talk about.
Right. But let's say that was talked about on a later time on Thursday, and then
And you booked
Friday
it for the
morning
next
somebody
week.
starts blowing it up again, but you worked the night shift and then you went home and went to sleep, so you aren't really seeing it until the Friday at night, and now a whole nother conversation's begun, and it's a whole bunch of memes and jokes and stuff like that. Cool, they were cool and serious for that short bit, but you still need to be able to get back to those
That's
messages
another
quickly.
thing we've talked about, is if there had been a serious conversation, because there's only 5 of us in the chat now versus the 9 that there was. So we've talked about it. If there is a serious topic that is talked about since our last like internal spat we had, nobody is allowed to send memes. Nobody is allowed to talk about anything else until all 5 faces that pop up at the bottom have read those messages.
See, I wouldn't even do it after the red. I'd be after they responded.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
there's
Yeah, no, that's what
times
I
when
meant.
I would
Yeah.
see it at night, and I'd look at it because I thought it was like a coworker trying to reach me.
And then you're just like,
and then I'm like, ugh, and I put it back down, and it's like, I'm not even gonna waste
yeah,
my time. But it shows
that's
that I
the
read
word
it.
that I meant, not seen, but responded.
Yeah.
So we won't continue. Like, let's say, for instance, we got a stem back from a producer we'd been working with, and there's a link to it. Nobody comments after that until everybody has responded.
But
Okay.
my thing is just like, let's say you've booked the studio time and you want to look back at when you booked it for. But in between that, I don't know, somebody took a picture of Bernie Sanders in mittens, and suddenly your whole chat is Bernie Sanders in mittens in 100 different places.
That's when I hit the 3 little dots at the top right and go search and chat and hit recording time.
Right. But
See, I'm glad you knew that. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
no,
Didn't even
you
know
know
that was a
that. And
thing.
here's the thing. I've
I
been
shall
at,
show you really
Nope,
quick.
I don't need to know. You can show me off cam.
I've been in bands with people who I wouldn't have trusted to spell recording correctly. I wouldn't find it.
But yeah, no, that's what I do as I
Yeah.
search and chat.
Another thing is that for starting bands, you don't need a manager. I don't know why I've met so many bands that think they need like a booking manager or whatever. I think it's really just an excuse to have the homie there, that's like super supportive of your band. That's like a really good friend. And maybe they're helping you out with the merch booth and stuff like that. That's fine. Just say they're your merch guy.
Yeah.
You-
Don't say they're the manager.
Right, because there is nothing more infuriating to me than when a band comes up to me and says, oh yeah, and this is our tour manager, and I can look at the guy and ask like 3 simple questions and they have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, and it's like, they are not a tour manager, they are a homie. Got it. Because if they were a tour manager, they'd probably have a lot of information that would actually be useful to me. And so it's kind of one of those things where it's like, if they're not genuinely a tour manager or actually doing business aspect for you, don't call them that. Call them your
Yeah.
merch person, do whatever.
Call him
but-
your roadie, your merch guy, something.
Whatever. But yeah, just, you don't need a tour manager at the beginning. And if you actually think you need a legit tour manager when you're first starting out, I don't know what the hell you're doing. You need to go get on a couple stages first,
Yeah.
then worry about that.
The other thing there is like if you have somebody who's doing who you dub a manager for your band of any kind, you're effectively saying this person's doing business on behalf of us.
Right.
That person can also tank your reputation.
Right.
Kicking a merch guy out of the group, that's one thing. Having a manager that's an asshole, that's a whole nother thing.
Right. So like, and safety for way to say that is like, the best way to put it is like, so when we talked a while back, we were talking about how Ginger was one of the most stressful shows for me. The band was not my problem. It was the tour manager, and that guy was a royal dick. And I'm not going to throw names because you know what? All I know it was an off night. I don't want to like slander that dude for the rest of his career. But for that night, he was the biggest pain in my ass I have ever experienced in my life. And I have dealt with some weirdos. Okay. This guy was just up in my fuck you meter. And again, he might be having an off night. I've had other people work with him and say he's one of the coolest dudes they've ever met in their life. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to chalk it off as to a bad night. It's done. It's history.
Yeah.
Whatever. But because of that, the next 2 shows that said he was on their tour, I was like, I don't know if I want to deal with it. Like, it was in the back of my mind. Like, I don't know that I want to deal with this guy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing we're talking about. Like, whoever you dub as your tour manager, as your any rule of management.
Yep.
That tells me that they are overseeing everything you do. Now, that doesn't mean that they're always going to be a pain in the dick. It just means that they might be. And once you've put in a sour taste, and even if you have moved on from it and you're like, you know what, it was a bad night, just like I said, that thought was still in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
And that's what you don't want. You don't want that inkling of any reason for someone to not want to book you.
Those type of experiences resonate deeply.
Right.
No, there's definitely been some tour managers who have prohibited me from making certain photos public for no other reason than they didn't like the photo, even though I was very proud of that photo. And you know what? That was the last time I've ever photographed a band that went with that tour manager. Because I'm not going to waste my time. And it's one of those things where I'm like, if you have a legit tour manager, you're a massive band. You should be a massive band. If you are just starting out and you feel you need you need a hand, dude. You need someone to help you.
You need a roadie.
out. Yeah.
That's it. You just need the homie roadie.
Yeah, exactly. You need a buddy to be there to provide you an extra pair of hands when you need it. That's really what you're looking for.
And that's really what the roadie status is it's your homie that's super cool, you can trust, that you know is going to take care of, helping you with gear or setting up the merch or taking care of money while you guys are on stage, things of that nature. That's all it is. But call them the proper name.
Yeah.
Do not consider them a tour manager unless they legitimately are going to run that position.
Yeah.
Like, it should be the only person making the emails for your band. It should be the only person receiving contacts.
Tour itinerary, travel plans,
input
bank
lists,
bag,
all
everything.
that stuff. They should be the one who goes in and talks to the promoter and be like, hi, I'm their manager. I'm going to be taking care of the money aspect of it. Here's all the stage plot and everything else and everything information that I need.
Yep.
They should be your manager. So anyway, off that, couple of really quick, fast, just bullet points I want to get out there real fast. You're going to bomb. Accept it. Learn from it. Do not let that discourage you. You're going to write bad music. Do not let that discourage you. Again, after you write a plot of about 6 to 10 songs, go through, critique yourself, figure out what's the best, what's getting the best crowd response, move forward. Another big deal is that when you are ready to start touring, either one of you owns the vehicle or all of you owns the vehicle.
Yep.
But be prepared, because if you do separate, and this goes with your music too. Okay, now maybe I should take a step back here. The band is a band. Anything that you bring into the band, whether it be vocals, guitar riff, art, logo, does not matter. It is a band function. If one of you throws a tissy fit and decides, hey, I'm not doing this anymore, screw you guys because you didn't give me an extra $100 at this show, whatever, I don't know. Or you genuinely have separation needs and it's like, hey, this guy's got to go due to work or family or whatever.
Right.
What happened with the band stays with the band. If you're going to do that, you need to understand that. You can sit here and have lawsuits. You can sit here and do all that crap. It ain't going to go anywhere, okay? At the end of the day, it's labeled to the band, all right? Now, you could fight for like royalty stuff if you guys are big enough, but we're talking about beginners. So, I mean, it shouldn't really matter at this point. What you put into the band is for the band. If you're all going to pitch on a vehicle, it's for the band. That if you leave the band, I would hope that the band would be cool enough to be like, hey,
here's your payout.
Here's your payout for your part of the van. But past that, that's it. If merch sales continue for stuff that you helped pay for to record at the studio and shit, because just because you leave doesn't mean that the band's not going to sell CDs and shit like that. It does not mean you're entitled to a right to it anymore. Unless you did it through a label, it really means nothing. It's once you walk away, it's done. You need to cut yourself dry of it, but you need to understand when you start a band, what goes into the band is for the band. You can't just be like, well, this song, I want these guitar riffs, so you can't use them anymore. It doesn't work that way. Now, if you guys can come to an agreement and be like, hey, when we were in the band, you guys know that this was my baby project of a song. I would like to take it with me. What can I do so that I can take my project with me, but not screw you guys at the same time? And I've done that. And they're like, well, hey, cool. Can you send us all the artwork and stuff that you paid for the band? And I was like, yeah, I don't need it anyway. It's here. It's yours. I don't care.
That's the other thing, too, that I think is very massively important. If you are a designer as well, like if you're the person who can't put the money in, but you can put in the design work, those chops, put a value on it. I just agree. It's like, hey, you know what? I'll throw this in. This is my $100 to the band. This is the logo I designed. Or this is $100. This is a shirt I designed. And If you want to break it even that way, say, we all put in this much, that's great. If you want to leave the band and be like, hey, you can't sell any of the shirts that I designed, it gets iffy.
Yeah.
At that point, it's better to have used an outside designer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So just if you can't accept that fact, then like Jan said, use outside sources. I mean, all your design merch, if you're going to do it that way. But yeah, so really that's all I had for like the quick bullet. I mean, we could really sit here and make
we
like
could
a
go on
3
for
hour
hours.
convo.
I honestly
one of the
could.
things that I do want to point out real quick is like, if you leave a band and that band hasn't had a live show or a promo shoot or anything after that, you're gonna see your image probably on some promotional material, some flyers, some photos that are being posted.
Yeah, totally.
You gotta understand that your image right is with the band at that point for that period of time.
I think another thing too is that don't expect that how we talked about in the past, like we don't like seeing bands. Now we're talking about established bands. Like I hate seeing bands with like the cell phone picture on stuff, not because of anything like you're not trying, but because the bands that I have the problem with that are established names. Like you were past this point.
Yeah.
When you're young in the band game, get some photos up of you. Get some photos up with your instruments.
Yep.
Have somebody take pictures of every damn show that you're at. Get pictures online, because until you can afford to get real pictures, until you can afford to get, a studio recording, you need to advertise yourself. Even if it's just pennies to pennies, you
Snapchat.
need something. So that's actually a really good point. But yeah, I mean, really,
the other thing is like, I think one of the things that we started with that you kind of brought up, it's going to bomb. Your band's going to fail. It's going to happen at some point.
In some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
It's going to fail. It's not going to be like 100%.
But no, I'm just saying, statistically speaking, I think if you put 100 musicians in a room, you probably have 500 filled bands between them. For one reason or another. You could be tired of the project, you didn't have enough time, maybe you dropped out of a project and the project went on and became successful. That's all fine. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't take the step.
Yeah.
I think if you are passionate about music, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is do it.
Yeah.
Make music.
And really that's the end of anything it's like anything in music, you need to try. And even if it's something where you fall out of it, take the experience with you, learn from it.
Even if it's not music and you're passionate about it and it's something you want to do, try it.
Yeah.
Even if you fail, even if it's something like, I want to get good at driving golf balls in a driving range. Even if you fail,
takes practice.
Don't give up. The Great Wall of China wasn't built overnight. It took a very long time, right? And they didn't give up, and now it's there. So just
talent ain't got shit in the hard work.
What?
Talent ain't got shit in the hard work at the end.
Yeah,
put in the work.
If you put in the work, you'll get the product.
Yep.
And even if the product doesn't sell to the masses, it's something you're passionate about, and you did it.
Yep.
I agree. Speaking of product,
which brings
so
me
Trevor,
to my
how would you tell me about what you're repping there?
God damn it! You fucking announced it. You beat me to it, bitches. I was literally going there next. I was like, I have one. I got one.
I got one in there.
Oh, I was gonna be like, that brings me to my next point.
Got nothing on me.
Today, I'm obviously
Episode
wearing
6. I finally
Adidas, but I got the boys in Filth on. This is my favorite T-shirt. It's pink.
pinky.
But Blaine booked them for the Wasteland Meltdown. Amazing, phenomenal band. They're deathcore, heavy as fuck. Dustin is an amazing vocalist, and he scares the living shit out of me live.
Yeah, he is a fucking, he's literally the epitome of, he was just possessed by Satan on stage.
His covers that he does and the reworks of some songs that they have on YouTube, I'm just like, man, I wish I could have heard this like this to begin with, because now I have this in my mind, and it sounds better.
Incredibly fun band to photograph as well.
Oh yeah, the eye rolls and everything.
That's what I'm saying. He comes off like he fucking just got possessed.
And he's not a small guy either.
Nope.
David Gant, their guitarist, really great guy in the music scene. Works with Traders. He helps produce music for a ton of bands. If you like heavy, scary shit, check out Filth. They just released some new music not too long ago. I can't remember the name, but Gutter Gang, baby.
Gutter Gang. Jan, what you repping?
I'm repping the boys from Steak Sauce Mustache.
Booyah!
So
no wiping my
Steak Sauce Mustache, you once hired me to photograph a Wednesday show for these guys, and the turnout was a Wednesday show turnout, and it was kind of quiet. And you were like, "No, you got to come see these guys. You got to come see them. They're so over the top. You don't understand." And you know what? when you said how over the top they were, you went into examples and it like you didn't even touch on a quarter of it.
Oh, I know.
These guys were jumping around, multiple outfit changes each. He was singing into a bouquet of flowers in which he had cleverly hidden his microphone, crawling around the floor. He honestly
shooting toilet paper everywhere,
right,
changing costumes that got less and less clothing each time.
He ended the show in an American flag one-piece mankini.
Yes, and it's so great.
The sleeping bag.
The sleeping bag. So straight up, Steak Sauce Mustache is hands down my favorite band to watch live. I don't care if this is national acts. I don't care if this is small timers. Steak Sauce Mustache is the band to watch live. It is such a crazy over-the-top show. People are like, oh, Green Jelly. No, Green Jelly ain't got shit on these guys.
I'm here about putting out a bounty of, put $50 on it for a photographer who can get a picture of their drummer not posing for a photo. Because I swear to God, I haven't gotten one. I have tried. Yeah. And all he'll do is like he will literally stop drumming to pose on top of his drum kit like one of my French girls. I don't know how he does it. Like how he spots me from the corner of his eye. He's too good at it.
Another thing too is Steak Sauce Mustache is a huge like internet sensation as well because of the fact of like their videos promoting their stuff, their music videos. If you watch their music videos and you see a ton of balloons and toilet paper and crazy stuff going on and them running around in parking lots dressed up as babies,
my favorite thing is the backs of their guitars.
The back of their guitars having a giant sticker of another one of the members. Yeah. So that way while they're playing, they can hold it up and play it upside down facing them. So that way it looks like it's someone else's head right there as they're playing. The guitarist has literally climbed onto my shoulders and made me run around the room while he played on his wireless guitar. I mean, they're nuts. They're nuts. And I cannot tell you how much fun they are. They are hands down my favorite band to watch online, to watch live. I cannot state it enough. The music may not be your taste.
Christmas music too.
The music, no shit. The music may not be your taste. I don't care if they're your taste or not. Look, if you are looking for the wildest, craziest fun time you've ever seen in your life, go see a Steak Sauce Mustache show. Even if you walked out of there like, fuck, this music sucks, you'll be like, but it was the best goddamn live performance I've ever seen. I do not care. No. They are fantastic. Absolutely I love Steak Sauce. You guys are amazing.
Mm-hmm. So, Blaine, what you repping?
What you repping, boy?
Who you repping?
So my hat's just a PB&A hat. I don't really need to go into that. It's a Papa Bear and Associates hat. My shirt is Everyone Loves a Villain. They are not metal. They are actually intense rock. And the reason why I said it is because that's what their Facebook bio said, so I don't get to subgenre variation. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to say it's intense rock.
I think it fits perfectly.
But they're really good guys. The singer and a couple of the members, I believe the guitarists, maybe one other member, I'm sorry, I can't remember everything, used to be in a band called Lucid. And Lucid was really, really cool. They reminded me a crap ton of Tool, but just better vocals, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And the singer has always been phenomenal. And then when somebody played Everyone Loves a Villain for me, I was like, man, this guy is amazing. He reminds me so much of this band called Lucid. So I went and I saw the show. Turns out it's the same guy because I went up to him and I was like, dude, you sound so much like another band that I knew back in the day. Are you from Lucid? And he's like, oh. And then him and his buddies who are from that band, they're like, yeah, we all used to be in Lucid. And I'm just like, this is so cool. And we were talking about, because my old band opened up for them back in the day at a place called the Jam Shack in Grandview. And we were talking like, oh, we still remember that place. It was that barn out in the middle of the fields in Prosser, right? I was like, fuck yeah, it was, dude. And he was like, that was such a weird show, but it was so freaking cool. And we just reminisced over it. And it was so cool to be able to like see those guys continuing on, even though their older projects hadn't worked out, and they were just fantastic.
How on point are you?
What
for this whole podcast episode?
What
old bands that didn't work out, but they still are great musicians.
Yeah, and that's no, that really does tie in. It's like don't give up. Keep pursuing your dreams. Like, something's going to work out.
Earlier, we were doing our scroll through YouTube thing, and I was like, yeah, Defamed, cool. That guy looks like the guitarist from Drown in Sulfur. That guy looks like the vocalist. So I hit Facebook, Defamed, members. Wow, it's everybody from Drown in Sulfur except for the bassist and the drummer who was giving him problems.
Yeah. So, I mean, just because things don't work out doesn't mean that it can't be good. With that being said, though, make sure you check out all those bands. We got Filth, Steak Sauce Mustache, and Everyone Loves a Villain. Really, I don't got much else. You guys cool with wrapping up?
And with that being said, yeah, go ahead.
The only thing is like, thank you and much love.
No,
I'm
we're
just
not
giving
there
you
yet.
chances to
We're not
say
there
that.
yet.
No.
Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit that little Arby's notification bell that we all love so much. You can find us all on Facebook, Papa Bear and Associates, Papa Bear Gigs at
Hotmail.com.
hotmail.com.
GIGS gigs.
Yeah.
Papa Bear gigs.
And yeah, that's all I got.
Trevor's a YouTube personality.
I've been wanting to do that in every episode.
everybody, welcome down to the KTCB. I'm here with Jan and Trevor. How we all doing tonight? No.
Well, we're doing good, yeah.
Yeah, we doing good, Dad. Oh my God. Oh my God.
My little T-Rex arms.
Oh my God,
No,
Poppy.
serious note. Make sure you do all that. Like, comment, subscribe. Jan's going to facepalm himself into next year.
Jan, can you show them our beautiful lights? Show them.
Oh, yeah.
Show them the power.
Give them the full seizure.
So that I can say much love with it.
Apparently, I can't.
What? No, you broke it.
I broke it.
Damn it. Okay, so we have colors. Colors.
DJ Blackman. Russian Village Boys.
Break it down. And with that being said,
Oh, you can hit him with the other one, too?
anyway, we love you guys. So much love to you all for checking us out and wanting us be the idiots that we are. And we will see you next time on episode 7.
Bye.
Much love. Papa Bear and Associates does not take any responsibility for sexual complications while listening to this program. Side effects have been known to include sweating, extended and unexpected erections, perked nipples, butt clenching, inflammation of the testicles, and anal seepage. Furthermore, if you are experiencing any of these symptoms, you should make sure to send us your non-graphic pictures for our viewing pleasure. Thank you and much love.